We're going to the West Coast right now to a man that needs no introduction other than it never gets old, saying the career leader in wins in the Canadian Football League. The great Wally Buono joins us, and he's got a message today, as you can see. Coach Buono, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, guys. Appreciate you having me on your show.
Wally, you sound very clear despite wearing a mask. Can we start there with the effort that you're spearheading, or at least part of in Vancouver, with the EVA?
Well, you know what? This is... Yeah, well, no. I just wanted to show everybody that it's for real, the mask, and it's something that I feel strongly about. And, it's about supporting women and protecting others. And, my daughter, Christy, works for the BC Women's Health Foundation, and one of the big projects they have right now is bringing awareness to women's health, and they have partnered up with EVA BC, which is a program that I think has gone national, and it's about protecting women against violence.
So, yeah, EVA, so End Violence Against Women. That is the effort, right? So are they selling these masks as a fundraiser? Because basically you got to wear masks anyways. Is that the idea here?
Well, I think, obviously it's a fundraiser for their programs, because whether it's BC Women's Health Foundation or EVA, they have programs that they need support with, to protect women. And the EVA program is a program that we were involved with about 10 years ago with the BC Lions, and now it's gone national, and it's received tremendous amount of recognition, and it does a lot to help women who are in trouble and stuff.
All right. Is there any way that, I guess the guys told me that Christie's not with you. Is there any way that they could support in terms of following on social media, that kind of thing, or send a donation? Do you have those details?
Well, I think what you can do is you can pre-buy a mask, and obviously every mask that's sold, there's a certain portion of the monies goes to either BC Women's Health Foundation, or if it's the EVA mask specifically, then it goes to the EVA program. So I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but go on the website, and I'm a lot. I need help with that kind of stuff. So just go on the website for either EVA or BC Women's Health Foundation, and you'll find what you need.
Absolutely, and you can follow Wally on Twitter at Coach Brillo, or Christie's very active on there. I know all the details are on Christie's Instagram and Twitter.
Christy's my Twitter manager, and all the quotes and stuff, I usually approve them all, but she's the one that keeps me active, because she's way ahead of the game when it comes to that.
Well, she's doing a great job. And Wally, let me please ask you this. I'm sure you're keeping up to date on where COVID's at in this country. Here in Saskatchewan, numbers are extremely low. So we can't really relate to what you guys are going through out there in the Lower Mainland. What's life like out there for you guys here 100 plus days in?
Well, you know what? I got to give the province of British Columbia a tremendous amount of credit, because they've done a great job, too, of keeping the numbers down. And Dr. Bonnie Henry has become a household name, and, a little bit like a rock star, too, because she's really done a great job of promoting, the things that we need to do to get this pandemic under control. So, it's like anything else. It's sometimes you got to worry more about your neighbor, about the people outside other than yourself. And a good example of that is when I wear a mask, it's not that I'm protecting myself. It's that I'm protecting the person that's next to me in the store, or the person that's at a health clinic, or anything where you are indoors, and you can put on a mask. When you do that, you're helping that person.
Wally, we've got a viewer in Winnipeg has a question for you. John Ohm, he says, can you ask Pasquale Wally Buono his favorite pasta? It's a thing that's come up this week with our guests. What are you ordering your favorite pasta when you're out?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I'm doing since I'm retiring, I'm expanding my culinary skills. And one of the things I've done in the last couple of weeks is started to make homemade pasta. And last night we had homemade pasta with a puttanesca sauce. And, obviously when you're Italian, you don't have one favorite, you have a lot of favorites. But, the one thing that I've always eaten since I was very, very young is my mother's, what we call is our Sunday sauce. It's a red sauce made with, nice plum, ripe tomatoes. And it's got lots of sausage and meatballs and stuff in it. And it's something that whether it's today or 10 years from now, it'll always taste great.
Wow. Good question, John. By the way, you mentioned Montreal or growing up. So one of our viewers in Montreal said a real Montreal flavor today. Wally, Buono, John Liu, and Mo Khan. And we in the West don't really think of you as an Eastern guy. We think of you as Calgary and BC. When you think of Montreal and your childhood, what do you think about? And I guess your Alouettes days too. What kind of a place in your heart does Montreal have?
Well, you know what? Montreal is where we immigrated from Italy too. And, when they talk about where the pandemic has hit the hardest in Montreal, Montreal North is one of those areas. And that's where all the immigrants were in the 50s. A lot of Italians came from southern Italy to, look for a new life, find a new life. And we all settled in that area. And then eventually we all moved out and they all moved to St. Leonard. And, Montreal is home. And no matter where you live, but you always look at that as where you grew up. There was a big influence on me in Montreal by the Montreal Canadiens as far as how they ran their organization, how they brought their players up, and, how they expected nothing but excellence. And I've adopted that, in my career, and it's been very, very helpful.
Interesting. You're right, Wally. Excellence in all areas. I'll tell you, in my dealings with them from a media relations, it's just first class. I'm always like, you don't need to be this nice to be Canadians. But they were. They were something. A lot of teams could take a lesson from that. Now, to the CFL, Wally, I mean, you mentioned you're working on your culinary skills. I think every time a coaching vacancy comes open, your name comes up. Christy tells me that you're extremely happy in retirement, and I bet you're really happy with your decision given the state of the CFL right now.
Well, you know what? I'm happy that I'm retired, but I'm actually quite concerned about the CFL and where we're at right now. It's not easy on anybody. It's definitely not easy on the players. They got families to have to feed, and they got bills they have to, to pay. And, at this point, they're not even sure there's going to be a season. So, I feel for them, but I feel too for the, the coaches, the scouts, all the people that are involved in football, because when you look at all the uncertainty that's going on, it's difficult. But, the one thing I will always say, the CFL has a way to overcome anything. And maybe this might be its biggest challenge ever. And, we're hoping that Randy Ambrosie, the Board of Governors, get it done. And I know all the fans would love to see the CFL playing in the fall.
Well, it's going to take a big effort by everybody, not just within CFL lovers within this country, but around the world. But did you not tell me that your first involvement in the CFL, was it in like 68? Like, it's a long time. What was your first?
Ron, I'm old, but I'm not that old. No, my first well, you could probably say 67. Okay, how's that? Because
I was close.
When I was 16, I did go to a camp, I guess, for young players that the Montreal Alouettes put on. It was was for a week, and what they did is they had a camp. Then a lot of college scouts came up from the United States, to scout young players, and this is how I got a scholarship, to the United States, and that was my first introduction. But my first year in the CFL with the Alouettes was 1972.
Right. Well, now, hey, I just want to tell you that I was listening when you were telling me that story, by the way. And the reason I bring it up is I don't think there's been greater peril in the CFL history than right now. So what do you think it's going to take to overcome it?
Well, you know what? It's hard because, Rod, honestly, when you're outside looking in, you don't know everything that's going on. And obviously, the finances is always such a big issue in the CFL. And when you look across the league, there's teams like Saskatchewan Roughriders that are very healthy. And there's other teams that maybe aren't quite as healthy financially. And, when you look at 9 members, they all have different agendas. They all have different ways they run their football club. And, they all have to agree that playing is going to be worthwhile. And if that means they play in front of empty stadiums, that's another huge issue because, the CFL is a gate-driven league. And, the better your gate attendance is, the better usually your health of your team is. So, these are all difficult decisions, but, the CFL finds ways to, put that product on the field, and I'm hoping that they can find a way again this year.
Wally, have you got a couple minutes for viewer questions?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
When you're retired, when you don't have a lot to do.
Well, we'll take up some of that time then. Paul Totsky in Waterloo says, "Hi, Wally. Did Marv Levy influence you in your coaching career? And if not, who influenced you the most?"
No, definitely Marv Levy influenced myself and a lot of people that I talked to, not only just in coaching, but just how to be, how to be a pro, how to be a man. And, Marv was really big on giving players ownership. And, when you look at whether you work for a corporation or you have your own business, you got to be able to have ownership of what you do and put the pride and put the effort into doing something. And, Marv was big on that. He always challenged your manhood. He always challenged your competitiveness. And for Marv, a veteran was a benefit, not a liability. And the veterans knew that, and they knew if they played for Marv, he would protect them. So, that also comes back to, the loyalty thing. And, I felt most of the time I treated players that way. I wanted them to know that what they did was important, what their goals was important. But yet, game day, they had to come out and they had to play.
Rachel Tassoni asks, whose idea in your locker room was it for the staples in the Grey Cup? Have you guys ever divulged that?
Oh, yeah. No, we did. Here's the funny thing about it is on Saturday, we went to the Big O to practice, and there had to be maybe 6 inches of snow on the field. And Marv, being Marv, had to get his special teams in. So he got a worker come in, had a scraper. He scraped about a diameter of about maybe 4 or 5 feet. And he had Don Sweet kicking from there so that we could do all our kicking games. And so they had left the snow on the field. And what they wanted to do was just before the game, take the snow off. So we get there on Sunday, they do, but because it was cold, all of a sudden the moisture on the turf froze. So Tony Proudfoot and myself went out and started, goofing around, and we asked one of the workers for his staple gun. We put the staples in the shoes, and we realized that by doing that, the staples were breaking the crust of the ice. So we told everybody, got a bunch of staples guns from the workers at the Big O, and at that time it wasn't illegal to doctor up your equipment. So we went out there, and we had a little bit better traction than the Eskimos, and the score indicated that.
What a time. I thought it was Tony. And by the way, they had a fundraiser for ALS on the weekend in Montreal, and obviously not all in Tony's honor, but there was a Proudfoot team raising a lot of money for Tony there. He was such a special guy. One viewer asked, do you have a funny or interesting story about coaching Doug Flutie? I'm sure there were a few.
Well, no, I do. I guess the funniest, and again, Doug was a pretty serious guy, and, but Doug was always pestering me about wanting to do an extra point drop kick. Okay. And I kept on telling Doug I couldn't do that because I didn't want to embarrass the other team. I didn't want to embarrass, the whole situation. So we're playing the game, and we're up like by 50 points. And Doug comes to me right at the end of the game. He says, Coach, he says, if we score, can I go do the extra point? And I said, Doug, I'm not going to let you do that because I don't want to embarrass the club. So he walks away a little bit in a huff. And then the following year, he goes to Toronto in '96, and Don Matthews, God bless him, allows Doug to do the drop kick extra point. Okay, and this was Doug. Doug always wanted to have fun, and he always wanted to enjoy what he was doing and stuff. Right.
I got one last one for you, Wally. Alondra Johnson was on here, and he said, because I asked him, why did you leave BC for Calgary? And he said, Wally signed me with one job, shut down Tracy Ham. And AJ, he goes, and I did. Is that all true?
Well, let me tell you the whole story. So it was 1990. We had played Tracy Ham in the Western Final in Calgary, and our middle linebacker couldn't handle Tracy Ham in that game, and they beat us. So then in 1991, Roy Shivers, who was our personnel director, we talked about how do we improve our football club. And, obviously one of the key things was to get a guy that could control Tracy Ham because in the West, as you know, at that time, you didn't get out of the West unless you went through Edmonton of some kind. So, Roy went down to L.A., had some money in an envelope, talked to AJ, said, here's the money. All you got to do is put your signature on that contract, which he did. And, when I talk about the great turnaround in BC, a lot of people – in Calgary, a lot of people will look at Alan Pitts or Doug Flutie but the guy in my mind who really, really changed that program, was Alondra Johnson, not only because he could get after Tracy Ham, but, because of the kind of intensity that he played, the kind of physicality that he played. He just created a whole new atmosphere there. And, I think he and his play speaks volumes.
Well, you probably know he joined us from Henderson, Nevada, and he said he and Roy go for lunch about once every 2 weeks. That probably won't surprise you at all. So, Wally, I appreciate the visit. Always enjoy talking ball with you. Congrats on the efforts with BC Women's Health Foundation and Eva, and stay safe out there. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. And Rod, I thank you for having us on. And, I also want to let you know, too, that Sully is helping us with this project. And I know he's got a lot on his plate today. But, to help BC Women's Health Foundation and Eva, it is a privilege for me because when you help especially when you help women, it's a big cause.
No kidding. Thank you, Wally.
Appreciate it, guys.
You betcha. Wally Buono out in White Rock joining us today. That was awesome. That was so great.
I love the stories.
Oh, yeah. Oh, think he's got a tickle trunk of stories?
Just scratching the surface, I'm sure.
No.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.